Hello, I am Kevin Anderson.
And I'm Adam Okada.
And we are clinical educators and hosts of the Ask the Educator podcast, brought to you by Healthmark, a Getting a company.
Are you a sterile processing technician, infection preventionist, or biomedical engineer? No matter your role, if you're involved in medical device processing, this podcast is for you. Our goal is to equip you with the knowledge and tools for excellence in medical device processing.
Now let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Ask the Educator podcast. This is your host, Kevin Anderson, and joining me, as always, Adam Okada. And for this one, we have as our guest of honor the newest member of our team here at Healthmark Clinical Affairs is Rebecca. And Rebecca, I just wanted to give you a chance to kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background before we kind of get into the topic of the episode.
Yeah, it is awesome to be a part of this team. And you know what's funny is that I started doing sterile processing before I realized that it was something actually called sterile processing. So I was working as a veterinary assistant and spent a lot of my time in the OR and reprocessing the instruments. And I actually met Sarah Cruz at that veterinary hospital. And she said, hey, you know what we do is actually a field in human medicine called sterile processing. And I was like, what? That does what? That's a thing? So we took a course together. And then I ended up getting my feet wet in the field with my professor who hired me on as a per diem tech. And then I kind of bounced around a few hospitals in Connecticut and went to college in Maine. So I ended up moving back to Maine and bounced around a little bit more. I've worked in many different roles from, regular technician, lead tech, manager, educator. But I found that education was always my true passion. And it was the one role in the field that really helped me, not help me, but it made me feel totally fulfilled. And it was exciting to help people grow and learn more. And so at some point I joined the AME committees because I wanted to get involved more. And that's where I met a bunch of the Healthmark crew. And we worked on a couple of the committees together. And that was probably one of the most rewarding things that I've done for myself was joining the AME committees and getting that experience working on that, but also getting to network and meet you guys. So here we are today. And again, I'm excited to be the new clinical educator for the Northeast Territory.
Welcome to the team, Rebecca. You are very, very welcome. And I can't think of a better person to help us with this because the theme of today's episode is giving thanks to sterile processing professionals. We're hoping this comes out on Thanksgiving. That's the goal. Yes. And why do you think it's so important that we acknowledge sterile processing professionals and that role that they play with patient care?
So, generally speaking, there's a lack of recognition for the complexities of our job within surgical services. Our daily tasks have grown more and more complex as new standards and new IFUs come out. Technicians nowadays need to be way more abreast of the information and also have a more in-depth education and understanding of the why behind each step of the process that we're doing, whether that's cleaning verification, insulation testing, continuity testing, routine inspection of basic instruments, basic decontam practices, everything. It's just way more information that we need to know now than we have previously in our field. There's still many facilities out there that don't have an education program or have something that needs a lot of love and attention. A lot of the techs in the field don't have capabilities or accessibility to information to research these standards and other educations available to them. And I think it's important to realize how much science is the backbone of our processes and the amount of our brains that we need to give to understanding the science behind everything and all that critical thinking ability that we need to possess to achieve all of our duties and maintain our knowledge base is critical. So understanding how vast everything we need to know is it's important, that we have to give credit where credit is due and having that proper understanding of everything we need to know. needs to be put out there.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, Adam, of our of our podcast that we did recently, where we're asking, is this even really truly an entry level position like it is treated
Yeah.
in the hospital setting today? And I look back at what you were just talking about when you were introducing yourself and how you stumbled upon sterile processing accidentally, and I think that that is such a um, common thing to happen, and how most people end up in this industry is almost on accident somehow. And it comes to back to the importance of this question. Why is it important that we acknowledge sterile processing and their role? It's because we consider them the heart of the surgical services department, but there are so many more departments now than ever that depend on our services in sterile processing. And there are barely any college programs. There are barely any advertising, like people know about nursing. People know about, becoming a doctor, or even a respiratory therapist, or any of these different, sort of ancillary positions that maybe are a little bit less known than nursing, or medical doctors and things like that. But they know about them because there are college programs, there are colleges or schools out there trying to get people to come and learn about it. So I
Yeah.
think that kind of ties into that episode a little bit. If we had more schools teaching to this, even high schools, right? We have all these high schools now taking students to the hospital and teaching them basic things. And why isn't this part of it? This could be a huge opportunity for those students to get their feet wet in sterile processing and learn a little bit more about it. But um, hopefully that kind of transition a little bit right into the next question, which is, how can we increase visibility and recognition for sterile processing in this great industry?
And it's something that I feel like when I first heard about sterile processing as a job, I think it was around 2012. And at that point, within the veterinary industry, it was never recognized. But now, fast forward, 12 years, veterinary hospitals are hiring sterile processing techs, and other industries or other units are coming to us for advice on reprocessing things, whether that's endoscopy or clinics asking us about transport. I feel like we are starting to get some recognition for the level of expertise and knowledge we have with the processes, but there's still a very long way to go. So, a couple of things that I could suggest would be if you have a local HSPA chapter or other local groups for AST or AORN, trying to get involved with them and doing some community outreach can be helpful. You're connecting with fellow folks in your industry, or where you guys have some common positions, and then connecting back to community, and getting folks knowing who we are and what we do every day, letting them know what our job is and that the good things we do every day for patients outweigh what's on the news. So again, like that level of community involvement, not just with like local chapters, but then doing community outreach, like volunteer work. I think that's always something that you can tap into. Another thing that we need to look at is continuing to bridge the OR SPD gap. So whether that's a matter of developing a program for having your OR techs or nurses come down to the department and follow a tray through the whole process. That could be something for new hires, or it could be something that you could work with your operating room educator to maybe do an annual competency for them. But on the flip side, getting SPD into the OR and seeing the same thing. Look at a case from start to finish, and then in SPD as well. But a lot of us don't understand still how certain instruments are used in the body, and even the process of opening things aseptically and how it transpires up in the operating room. I think that again, like as you continue to build that relationship, it promotes more respect, trust, and unity between the departments. And then you have another group that can vouch for sterile processing and how what we're doing is not just putting something through a washer. There's way more to it. Um, and another thing that I thought about was, if you don't have a monthly newsletter for your department, creating one that you can share with the rest of your hospital or the other departments in your facility could be useful. If you include things about accomplishments of your techs, of your technicians or your team. You could also include studies and new standards that are happening to explain why we have to do things the way we do. But the biggest thing is that there's a language gap you have to bridge. So making sure that you want to know your audience and help ensure that they can understand what you're talking about. So if you got to explain it in such a way that if somebody doesn't know anything about sterile processing, they could read what you're saying and then understand it. But that language gap is something that I think we need to really think about when we talk about sterile processing and trying to get more buy-in.
And such great ideas. Thank you, Rebecca, for a lot of that. There was so much in there, and I think so many good ideas. How about giving thanks to our sterile processing professionals? What they do is so important. How can leaders show that appreciation for everything that they're doing?
So again, I think that department newsletter is definitely a place where you can brag about your team and everybody's accomplishments. But also it's important to give credit where credit is due. If you see somebody handling a phone call smoothly, fluff them up. If somebody explains a step in a process to another coworker, well, give them credit, give them praise. It's important to make people feel good and reinforce positive actions with positive feedback. Every day there is something you could say about a coworker, that something good that they're doing. Also, if you have department huddles, daily huddles, that can also serve as a platform for leaders and coworkers just to give feedback and positive words about their colleagues and their fellow teammates. We should in huddles that I led, there's always a section for folks to give comments, but it also made me think of maybe there should be a section in the huddle just for team members to say something nice about their coworkers. And then for leaders, one thing I suggest is keeping track of all the positive interactions that you're seeing every day with your technicians. It's really important to keep a documentation of that because when it comes time to do your annual reviews, sometimes it's hard when you pull up, for example, you pull up somebody's file and you're like, wow, I didn't log anything. What have they done this year? So keeping track of all of those great things that people do, even though there can be a lot, you got to document it so you can give credit back where credit is due. So.
I think that's a great point. I love that you're talking about documenting things that are well done. I think we can all sort of relate to maybe somebody sharing appreciation, but it kind of coming off as generic, like thank you for what you do or whatever. And you kind of feel like, well, what does that mean really? Like, does that mean thank you for just all the normal stuff you do when you punch in or punch out? Or did you actually was there something above and beyond that I did or what have you? You know what I'm saying? Like it comes off a little bit more generic, a little bit, when it's less specific. But if you're
Yeah.
actually watching and looking and documenting for things that are a little bit different, I think that gives people a little bit better idea of what you value in terms of a leader of the department or just a peer. I love that idea of giving people some space to show appreciation within a huddle setting and publicly thank each other. Those are excellent ideas. And you know what? I really wish people would do is try some of these ideas. One of the things that's as you get into this educator role and you do more and more time in it, one of the things that I find most challenging or tough to deal with is, do the people that listen to these ideas ever use them? And do they ever put them into action? And I know some do, and some of them maybe don't get the result they want or whatever, but it would just be nice to see that people are actually trying these things out, and
Yeah.
see if they make a difference,
And sometimes you have like facilities that have a toxic workplace culture where if you put these activities into place, you might have some staff that are, just make comments or take it negatively. But I think it's important as a leader to recognize, you have a facility with a mission statement and a core culture of values. And so
Mhm.
part of these things is part of what these recognitions do. It aligns with a lot of facilities, like the culture they want to do. So by trying to help reinforce the culture that your facility wants to maintain, it can over time make a difference, and it does shape the way your department interacts with each other when you have this type of transparency. I do feel that individual recognition, more specific recognition is more validated. It feels more genuine. Like if,
Mhm.
as a technician, whenever I heard like, oh, you guys, thank you for everything you do, after a while, it just felt like a generic sugar-coated thing. You wanted more detail, you wanted more recognition on the individual level. So I think it's important to individualize and personalize your observations
Right.
there.
It's like, do they really see what I do, or are they just saying that? And sometimes it's both are good. It's not to mean that a general appreciation isn't good, but it's nice to be known, to be seen for what you are doing and accomplishing. You mentioned something earlier that I thought was a great way to increase visibility, and that's like speaking at these um other uh what he's what's the best way? So like for example, the APIC chapter. So we have HSPA chapters. Everybody's familiar with HSPA local chapters, but there are APIC local chapters, there are AORN local chapters, and there is a lot of hungry educators in our industry that are looking for opportunities to go and speak and do these things. Well, reach out to them. Maybe they'll give you that opportunity. And those are the people you want to be educating anyway, because they're going to turn into your best advocates in the facilities. But I just wanted to call that out there before we wrap this up. And I wanted to give you this chance as well to, what final message would you want to give to sterile processing professionals during this season of giving?
So I have two things. So one, don't forget to give back to each other and support one another. Give your teammates positive feedback whenever you can. It's important that we lift each other up. Um, Consistently, no matter how crazy and stressful our department is, because working in healthcare is not easy. A lot of us get really stressed out. A lot of us get burned out dealing with intense situations in the department. It's mentally exhausting. So give your coworkers a pat on the back, maybe not physically, but like emotionally, like you need to just give each other that positivity every day. And then for me, something I had to do for a while was whenever I was reprocessing something, I needed to get in the mindset of, these instruments are going to be used on someone else next. Each day we have the opportunity to help improve a patient's health. And I think that sometimes we have to recenter ourselves and put that in the forefront of our brains. And be present and intentionally say to yourself, I have to get this ready for another patient. Um, so that way we can do the best we can with our expertise and knowledge to give that gift of better health to a patient.
Rebecca Peplau, that was such a great answer and so many great things that we can do for sterile processing technicians. Like I said, you're the perfect person to do this. So
Well,
welcome to the
we
team
all
and
are.
thank
So,
you. And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
no, thank you
And
guys.
for our listeners, have a happy Thanksgiving and a good holiday season. We'll see you on the next episode.
All opinions expressed on this episode are those of the presenters. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Before using any medical device, it's important to review the manufacturer's instructions for use and consult with a professional.
For any questions or feedback, please reach out to us at asktheeducator@hmark.com.